Hey, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for coming to another fantastic Fame Week event, Beyond the Technology, with our guests from Facebook discussing the Oculus and Beat Saber game and much more. I am going to introduce the panelists. We have three in the house and one is on the way. So first up, I would like to introduce DEBORAH Guzman Barrios. DEBORAH is part of the studio's team at Oculus. DEBORAH supports teams like Beat Games on the production side. She's a lifelong gamer. She's excited about VR and its potential to bring us into new uncharted worlds where we can experience anything, which is super cool. Next up is Adam Clay. Adam Clay is a director and a producer. Adam's background is in directing and producing many types of video and music content. He's got an extensive background in vertically integrated content creation across multiple distribution platforms for gaming, commercials, documentaries, and indie film. Most recently, Adam spent 2 years at Sony PlayStation producing all types of content for YouTube, for social media, and for broadcast. He also has a long background as a professional drummer, playing for the Golden State Warriors, Aftershock, and 49ers Niner Noise drum lines, as well as being a world traveling performer and clinician. This has given him a lot of experience in choreography and music composition, which plays heavily into his work as a filmmaker. Welcome, Adam. Next up, we have Kate BACHERT. I hope I pronounced that right. Kat. Sorry, not even Kate. Kat. Kat has spent the strategy. Kat's background includes working in experimentation with a transition to Facebook for a number of reasons, but the most important one is the amount of information she appears and how much she learns every day. Welcome, Kat. Please forgive me for a couple minutes. Kat, talking to you first for a moment, because we have a little bit of history in common. I worked at Disney for several years. You worked at on this Disney Pixar collaboration. So I'm super curious to know because we have a lot of animation students that are going to be doing this project and who originated it.
I believe you might have been asking, I think you might have been cutting out here and there, but asking about the
I am
Cinderbiter production that I worked on for stop
Is that
motion
about the Disney
animation.
Pixar
Yeah, that was a Henry Selick.
Collaboration, the stop motion project, and what happened to that? And what was it? Yeah.
It
Oh,
was. I don't know how deep I can get into it, but it was a stop motion animation project that Henry Selick led. He was the director, and I worked as a story and editorial project manager for that. So it was in a big warehouse here in San Francisco. I'm based out of the Bay Area. And it was around 200 incredible people from all over the world who were working on very tiny puppets and hair and clothing and camera sets downstairs with all the environments, and a wonderful group of people. That was between 2010 and 2012.
that's amazing. Yeah, I actually have a history with Henry. I met him during Nightmare Before Christmas when I was there at Disney, and then was the executive on Monkey Bone at
Oh, wow.
Fox. Tortured little Monkey Bone, quite the experience working on that. But Henry's an amazing talent, such an amazing artist.
Yeah, it was amazing because he was able to see, we shot at 2 frames per second, but he was able to see like seemingly 10 frames in a second. He could just see almost in between the frames and really pick out what he was going for. Incredible eye.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of you watching who aren't familiar with the name Henry Selick, he did direct Nightmare Before Christmas, even though it's called Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas. Henry was the director on that. Henry, back when they directed the Pillsbury Doughboy commercials, and sort of launched his career with those. And then he directed Coraline after Monkey Bone. I'm sure a lot of you grew up seeing Coraline, a super cool movie. So, and James and the Giant Peach. I mean, he's got an amazing library as a director, so do check him out. So, Adam, let's talk to you for a second. You have an amazing background, both as a director, as a producer, as a musician. Tell me a little bit about how you got involved with the Golden State Warriors and the 49ers bands,
Yeah.
drum line.
So I was a drummer for a very long time. My dad was a drummer, so I've been drumming since I was a little kid, and eventually, did drumline in middle school and high school. And that led to me doing a couple independent groups that, competed on a national scale. And the one that I ended up with and was with the longest, it's called the Concord Blue Devils. And that group also has an entertainment organization called Blue Devils Entertainment. And they're the ones who contract out to do, the Warriors, Golden State Warriors drumline and the 49ers drumline. So I was a part of that group for, probably about 12 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so that led to all kinds of opportunities to, be at all kinds of cool events for Warriors and 49ers, but also, travel around the world and, do gigs in Europe and Asia, and yeah, lots of fun.
That's great. And how old were you when you were doing all of that? Were you like a teenager? Is that when you started the drum line?
So when I started with Blue Devils, I was 19, I think. And so I did the competitive portion of that from 19 to 21. And then at 21, that's what they call an age out. That's the last year that you can do like the competitive portion. And then after that, I was just doing all the entertainment gigs.
So you were like the Menudo of drum lines.
Yes, you can.
And then in terms of the music and that passion for music and that talent, I assume you brought that into your career as a director or producer, right?
Yeah. I knew I wanted to be a filmmaker as a kid. And, I didn't really, I would make like home movies with my little brother when we were little. And then throughout middle school and high school, got really into cameras and video editing. But didn't really try to start pursuing it as a career until after I'd finished all the drumline stuff. And what I kind of came to figure out is that, filmmaking, when people say pacing, it's the same regardless of whether it's music or visual. So I felt like I had a leg up because, I just spent at that point, like 10 years of my life, learning how to control pacing and how to understand it and how to just feel it. And so that I feel like directly translated into, me being able to edit together, visuals and understand, like, when I'm watching a visual, what is the pacing in that visual? How can I control the pacing in that visual? And then when I'm creating my own things, how can I choreograph the pacing in a visual without having to rely too much on the editing? So I definitely always recommend to, people that that have asked me, or, look for it in people that I work with, a diverse background in pacing when it comes to like artistic talent.
Oh, that's great. That's amazing. And it's what it just emphasizes the ways that music influences and contributes to a person in so many ways. It's really incredible. And I love also that this was a clear passion of yours, and you've married your passions and been able to support both those passions and move forward. And I always tell our students, like, follow your passion. Like, don't turn your back on something because you think it's not relevant. It will be. Embrace that.
Yeah.
So, all right. So DEBORAH, I've got the shortest bio on you. So I know that you're part of the studios team at Oculus. What did you do before that? How did you come to be with the Oculus team?
I'll try to keep that short. So I'm originally from Puerto Rico, and I grew up like never thinking that I'd get to work in anything related to games or narrative. So, but I've always like grown up with movies, been a huge fan, crazy about movie soundtracks and composers. So that's always been there. And also very passionate about music. I grew up loving music games, all sorts of video games. And kind of how everything started was, just taking a leap of faith and moving to California, which is, a good 10-hour flight away, just because I'm a huge fan of technology. And then just really, I love what you mentioned about passion. I was very passionate about wanting to get into Oculus, even though I knew no one, had no references. So I ended up, just doing a lot of outreach and trying to figure out how to get in there in a way that, I could be an asset for everybody there. So I even kept a journal of everything, the whole process, because I was so excited. And I actually, my background is in finance and business administration. It's like completely different. I did finance and accounting for a few years. And then when I joined Oculus, I was actually not working in games either. I came in on customer service and fulfillment. And through, people finding out how what a nerd I am when it comes to games, and how just being open to new opportunities in life, I think those two things kind of opened the doors for me to then move over to the games team, which I've been doing for the last 3.5, almost 4 years. And once that happened, then everything sort of magically fell in place. And I ended up finding this game called Saber, which is about music. And it spoke to me. So I reached out to that team and I told them, listen, I think we should work together. And they've been very generous. And I've had the pleasure and the honor to work with them for the last 3 years. So it's been a crazy journey. Yeah, for sure.
That's great. So question for you, what are your 2 favorite games and your 3 favorite soundtracks?
Oh my God, that's so hard. It depends on the era. But I guess I'll say real quick, I'm a big fan for all of the narrative games. So, your Don't Nods, and for their soundtracks. So anything with story in it, I'm a huge fan of. Life is Strange, that's a favorite. Also grew up with all the Final Fantasy role-playing games, and also a big fan of anything that Kojima makes as well. He also loves stories. Death Stranding was another one I played recently. It was a great game. So I think it's about, what era of my life I was in. I guess I have my favorites for that. But those have been three important ones for me. And Horizon Zero Dawn, sorry, I snuck in a 4th. Also amazing story, amazing music in there. And then regarding soundtracks, it's difficult. My all-time favorite is John Williams. So I love everything he's ever done, and a huge fan of him. And every time he collabs with Spielberg, huge fan of that. I would say Hans Zimmer is another one that I'm a big fan of. It was interesting for me. I hadn't watched Interstellar, but I heard the Interstellar soundtrack for the first time. And it was the only time in my life that the music of a movie has made me want to go watch the movie. So I was like, when I heard what he did I was like, I need to go watch this movie. That inspired him to do that. And I guess James Horner, it's another one I'm a huge fan of. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. That's great. And welcome now to Susan Rodriguez Mata. Thank you so much for joining us. So I'm going to read Susan's bio,
Nice.
which is from Susan's own words. I am Susan, a woman in tech that has devoted my 16 plus years of career into IT, software development, and gaming. I have a huge passion for ops strategy, people development, and PMO. So that leaves me with just a ton of questions, Susan. So
hi, everyone. So happy to be here. Sure, let's start it.
welcome. So curious, so, you obviously you've got IT and software development and gaming. I assume you are a gamer
Oui.
or
I
not?
have to be honest, I am a social gamer.
Okay.
I'm not that passionate, gamer, but I try to, hop into games here and there. But I'm not like that she breathes games. I'm a bit different.
Oh, that's that, which is totally fair. And in terms of working on you're with the Beat Saber team, right?
Correct.
And were you with Beat Saber like back before it was acquired by Oculus?
No, actually, I was I think the first employee that was hired after the acquisition. And it has been, a tremendous experience to be able to work with all these, tremendous people. So amazing and so talented, to be honest. It's just super inspiring. Everything that we do, all the effort that we put in the music packs is just an eye-opening on this new way to work and this new, VR gaming thing. So it's been amazing, to be honest.
Cool. That's great. So I correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming that all of you or none of this particular group worked on Beat Saber prior to its purchase by Oculus. Is that correct?
I've worked with Beat Saber since before the game came out.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, so I've been kind of getting to know them for about a little over 3 years now. Yeah.
Great. And was it originally intended to be a game that would constantly evolve musically? Because I think that is one of the most cool aspects of this game.
I think it was born out of just, a lot of inspiration from the core team there, which were this duo that had been making games together for, half their lives and who had music in their blood. One of them is a musician, and them sort of getting to experiment with VR for the very first time and become, sort of immersed in this idea of, hey, there's a new way for us to kind of interpret music and to experience music. And I think that's what really started it off. Then over time, the third founder came in, who then had a lot of experience. He was a composer who's worked on many amazing things, worked a lot with Blizzard on Overwatch stuff. And he came in and sort of put his spin with the music in there. And then that sort of opened the doors for all of the collaborations that we've had since then with many, many artists around the world.
That's great. I love that the game is relatively simple in concept. Like Adam was saying earlier, it's a great starter game in the VR world if you're not used to being a gamer. And it just kind of points up that sometimes the simplest ideas are also the most brilliant.
Yeah, I tell everybody that it's easy to get into and hard to master. That's what I tell everybody. And it's interesting because as I've gotten to know the team more and more over the years, they've told me, Deb, for every decision that you see out there, there's 1,000 behind the scenes that we ended up not doing because it would have taken away from that balance.
Cool. So, and I did notice today there are 13 soundtrack packages that you can buy that have all been on Beat Saber, which is pretty remarkable for a 3-year-old game. So what tends to be the lifespan? Like, what's the point where someone starts saying, we need different music?
I think, growing up with music games, I've always loved having variety. and different breadth on the experiences that we could do. To your point, Kevin, to date, I mean, even today we launched our 10th collaboration with Skrillex, and we've also done what you also mentioned, the original soundtracks, which have been 4 that we've done so far as well. So I want to say that it's sort of been this natural evolution that's happened. I mean, a lot of people don't know this, but the core team, when the game came out, they were 4 people, basically. And then that slowly grew over time, but it was a very small team, which I think also speaks to, for all the students listening, like, you don't really need to be an army you don't need to be a big group of people to be able to accomplish some of these things. We've had some of the best games historically in VR come from teams that are a handful of people and build things that are very compelling for folks. So, and when it comes to Beat Saber, we're always trying to, continue to adapt and evolve and widen the types of music that we have in the game.
That's great. Adam.
Add something. There are like 3 zillion bands that reach us, and say, hey, we would like to collab, we would like to do something. And we unfortunately cannot put everything at all times. We would love to, but it takes a lot of effort to create something so spectacular where we do on every music pack. So I think that our strategy, has been trying to find out very specific market segments, and we're trying to get more diversity, get more other rhythms, get more more other music that can speak to us into many different languages. And that's what we're trying to do with our music packs. But definitely there's a lot of effort. There's many artists that we consider and that we're trying to reach out. And I just want to say, stay tuned, because there's something spectacular coming over.
That's really cool. One thing, I watched a YouTube stream, a streaming that was on YouTube with the guy from Linkin Park, Mike Shinoda. And so was he a fan of the game when you guys approached Linkin Park, or was that just like a great coincidence?
We've had a number of the artists who have been familiar with the game, which has been amazing and very humbling as well. I think that really speaks to how far we've come with VR, like going from, narrative projects and incredibly, projects that are trying things in new directions, which, Kat has been a part of as well through the years, to like then on a little bit more on the music side, kind of experimental, which we have been with Beat. I think we've tried to find something and make something for everyone. And I think that's very important as well, as we try to make something that is, convenient for people, but also easy to use and accessible. So I would say it's definitely been a combination, and it's also been, very humbling for us as well, just to know that slowly this game that means so much to so many people has, gotten a little bit more awareness out there in the wild over time.
Cool. And one last question on the music for it. I see that using Mod Assistant, you can download your own music into the game. And so does that music remain on your system only, or is there a way to share that music? Or would you, I guess if you were streaming that you were playing the game, you could share your music, right?
So what we have today is we have these DLC music packs that people can, sort of IAP content that people can purchase and download from the game. And also we have these original soundtracks that have come out. These today you can kind of play within your headset. So if you have someone, a family member that might be joining you in the home, then they can play as well. There's new features that the platform team at Oculus is working on to be able to make that easier for people so they can share. And on the Beat Saber side, those are things that we're keeping a close eye on to see when we might be able to consider those and see whether they would make a good fit for us as well. So yeah, I would say stay tuned. There's definitely a lot of things that are kind of in the mix that we're working on.
Cool. I bring that up partly because we have a very robust music production program, and a lot of those music production people are also gamers, and so it's really cool for them to be able to contribute their own music and stuff and work on, so.
Yeah, I would say that's something that we're always thinking about. We have a really passionate community out there. So over time, we're definitely this is something we talk about a lot. We think about a lot. Is how
so
to
Adam, it's a little insight into. All right, I might be frozen and I apologize. Hey, sorry, I'm back. I'm so sorry. I have been doing on this one, so I do apologize. So Adam, I was going to ask you, Adam, in terms of giving us some insight into what you're doing there on the Oculus team and what you want to bring to the team.
Yeah, so I actually work on the same team as Deb, but I'm the video guy. It's kind of how it goes. So I've been at Oculus for a little over 2 years now, and what I have really found that my job is helping translate these virtual reality experiences into video, into like filmmaking language, so that, you know, when we're in this era of, you know, people are just now getting into virtual reality headsets, people are trying to understand what it is, you know, everybody's having their first experience with virtual reality, you know, I'm the one who helps translate what that experience could be into a medium that everybody is really familiar with, which is cinematic language. So, you know, again, we were talking earlier about like choreography. Like one of the things that I've really been adamant about is that I think that real-time experiences in video is a good way to communicate what the virtual reality experience is like, right? Because a virtual reality experience, you can't explain it to somebody. It's like the analogy I always use is like, it's like handing somebody a picture of a single frame of a movie and then trying to explain to them what the movie is or give them the exact experience of the movie. Like they're not going to get it unless they watch the movie, right? It's a combination of a lot of different things. That's what virtual reality is. It's a totally separate medium. It's not video. It's not gaming. It is its own thing. So I think choreography and, you know, being in real time is a big piece of that when it comes to translating that into filmmaking. It's also audio, which I don't think a lot of people think about for VR. I mean, maybe for Beat Saber, it's obvious, but like when you're in narrative games, you know, it's, you know, like spatial audio is very important. You can hear things behind you. Like a great example of that is Vader Immortal, where there's a lightsaber dojo. And in the lightsaber dojo, a piece of what you do or what you have to do to be successful is listen to where the things are around you and react to where the sounds are coming from. You know, so incorporating that into videos has become very important, and, you know, meshing and melding all these things. So I would say that's like the biggest piece of my job. And then the other piece is understanding the technology and understanding the gaming world and how to translate that into the filmmaking world, which ironically is just what's happening in Hollywood right now anyway. Mm-hmm. You know, there is this big melding of both worlds of, you know, video game engines being used a lot more frequently in Hollywood, film, television, commercials, all this stuff. So it's been a very interesting journey for me as well, you know, also being in a field where I have to, you know, understand all of the traditional things that I had to understand when I was going to film school, like, you know, cameras and lenses and sensors and all that stuff, plus editing programs and media management and codecs and containers and my whole world, and then meshing it over here with, you know, all the 3D models and textures and game, you know, everything that's going on in game engines, and then seeing that, oh wow, there already was overlap. There already are, you know, like cinematic tools inside of game engines, and like, how can we utilize that? How can we build on that? How can we customize it for the virtual reality experience? And so I'm fortunate enough to work with Deb and with our other first party studios, producers and first party studios to try to figure that out.
That's great. Yeah, we actually, earlier today, we had an incredible demonstration from Moses, and they were really showing us a deep dive into, how Unreal in particular is just driving so much of the business now, and how they're now looking to take it into like just basic commercials and advertising and things like that, because its use is so broad. Kat, so on your part with the development strategy, is that sort of looking at the overall development strategy for Oculus and extending its brand and what you're developing for the Oculus, or are you specifically working on Beat Saber and then various iterations of it?
I work with third-party devs. So I work with developers who have been approved to come to the Oculus store, and I help them from early development through launch, just looking at builds, talking to the developers, getting them the information that they need, trying to unblock them every step of the way, and then helping them through the QA process to the store.
And how long a process is it? Is it like the journey of making a movie or making a big MMO type game where it's several years in process, or is it tighter?
It depends on the experience. Some of the experiences are ports from Rift to Quest, which tend to have a shorter timeline. And then there's other games from AAA studios, which are a much longer timeline. So it really depends on the developer, how many people are on the team, what their goals are, what the final piece looks like, and then, what issues they come up against as they're developing.
That's so interesting. And then how many projects at a time are you juggling? How many games are in production at the same time?
A lot. A lot. So I think Deb knows because she used to be in this role, but I don't know that anyone has a specific number, but I will say it takes more than two hands. Many more.
Yeah. That's a lot.
Which I think is a good thing, because I think it speaks to how much excitement there is and continues to be around Quest, and the fact that we now have this, the headsets, they've evolved as well, right? Like Kat was mentioning Rift, like that used to require a full-blown computer, which a lot of people don't have today at home. So to go from that into Quest, which literally everything you need is in the box, I think has been a huge step towards us, moving forward with VR. And it's also been very successful for a lot of developers as well, which is why I think we've continued to see an influx of amazing applications coming in. We're also seeing developers that are finding success and then making another VR game and another one, which is also fantastic, because you're building sort of this huge skill set within the ecosystem, which is also fantastic for both the players and the community.
Yeah. Wow. That's fascinating. In terms of several things actually. So we had a game production program, and there are a lot of game production programs at colleges around the country. Are graduates from those programs able to knock on your door and pitch projects to you? Do you need them to have different kind of levels of experience and production experience or development before they come in? Like, what's that process for somebody?
Deb, do you want to talk a little bit about it? We have a START program that a coworker of ours runs, and people can apply for that as devs who are starting out, and various devs, people at different points in their productions or levels of experience apply for it. And then there's also a growth program. And I find that the community between those two programs is incredibly strong, and people are always, bouncing information off of one another and learning from one another. Like, I'll be working with a dev who will come to me with more information than I have for them, sometimes because of the community feedback. And it's pretty impressive. Deb, I don't know if you have anything to say about that, but you've been around for a long time too.
No, that was super on point. I just wanted to add that it's one of the things that's been, continues, I think, to drive me, and I'm sure many of us at Oculus, is just to see the passion in these devs' eyes. It's like pouring out of their eyes, just how excited they are about what they're doing and about the opportunity to, just really define a new vocabulary in this medium, right? Like, there's genres out there that still haven't been fully figured out in VR. And you don't have to be a huge team to come in and really make your mark on that scene and create something that maybe becomes the staple for what every other experience after it does. And for us over the years, to Kat's point, there's been several programs that have come up, and there's a whole team within Oculus as well, within content, that is focused on finding ways to enable and support the students that are just graduating, or the devs that have made a lot of traditional games, maybe haven't made a VR one yet. And we're always, and also there's this exchange of information, like Kat said, that's happening within the community. So for us, it's just been a delight to see, I don't know, Kat, for you and me, I mean, through the years, just to see that really take off from like, a smaller group to more and more people really jumping in there.
And how is the original Beat Saber team doing? Are they still involved in the game? Is that part of the deal? Susan, you're laughing. Deborah, you're laughing.
Yeah, no, the Beat Sabers are life. It's like that's what we do every day, all day for a couple of years now. Both me and Susan, we work really closely together. So, and I think we both laughed because I cannot think of a more passionate team than the guys. I mean, they've been they're very involved in everything, very as passionate as they were when they made the first prototype for the game back in 2016. Like that hasn't changed. Now it's just more people coming in and new faces coming in that are also excited about the game. So yes, there are definitely a lot of excitement, very much involved, and very excited about thinking about ways that we continue to kind of build on some of the things that Susan said around bringing more music and widening that. And when it comes to gameplay, are there things that we can try that we haven't tried yet?
Something, Kevin, to talk about that specifically is that the team has been so passionate on creating this game. It's like it's their own baby. Like it's their own creation. It's like it's their own, body. Like it's so tangible, the passion that they put on every little thing, that we've got sessions where the lightning is not ready until it's completely and absolutely perfect. Like everything is so for them, they just have this passion to create an amazing experience all the time, and making sure that whatever we're releasing, even to QA, we're coming with builds with 0 bugs reported, because they're so passionate on making sure things are perfect, that they're like, no, it's not ready until it's ready in my mind, because I envision it, I saw it, the light needs to be like this and that. So they are part so much of the process that I believe it's the greatest thing that we have, and it's the essence that we have on the game. Of course, we've been introducing way more people, a lot more new hires. Our team has been growing, because there's no way in heaven that we will be able to release everything that we release right now with only 3 people. However, these sessions on brainstorming, defining the lightning, defining the effects, defining all the direction that we're going through, it's just so important that they're part of it. They, give a sign off, that they say, what, this is how I want it. This is how I see it. This is how the brand wants it. Like all these elements needs to work together. So they are pretty much every day in, day out with us, working together, and with, every part of the process.
And that's great. And that must be so amazing. And on the other hand, it also must be a little bit scary to see the game expand on this massive of a level and have this much popularity, and this much growth in terms of bringing in new people on the team. So how does that balance?
That's definitely the day-to-day that we work on. It's how do we combine sort of all of these amazing people coming in and joining the team with our own goals and milestones that we want to hit, as are many other VR devs right now that they're going through the same thing, right? They find success in a title, and then they think about, okay, what do we do next? And how do we figure that out? Investments are coming in. There's just an overwhelming sort of wave that I think is rising on this. And the Beat is no exception. Like we go through the same thing. So I would say it's a day-to-day thing that, me and Susan and everyone in the team will work on to try to maintain that balance and not take it for granted, I would say, is the other thing. Really not feel like we're done or we figured it out. It's always, what can we do a little bit better? And going back to the piece about, passion in devs, I would say that, and curious, Kat, what your experience has been, but in my time on the third party side, I was so honored to work with so many devs who were all so passionate about what they were doing, and their passion would come through in the gameplay mechanics that they would come up with. And it would also lead to them making, you know, big leaps in terms of how we imagine or how we thought about things that today, you know, if it's a regular video game, for example, UI is just a means to an end, right? You're getting through the menu to make your way over to the content. But when it comes to VR, there's opportunities there around making UI an even more interesting, engaging, immersive thing. There's this game called Red Matter that I tell everybody that I really love. It's a tiny team from Spain that made it, I think less than 5 people. And they managed to make UI so much fun, actually navigating through a menu. They actually, you're an astronaut in the game, I think. And they put the whole UI in your hand, actually. So, you know, instead of going into this traditional pause menu screen that would take a little bit of the immersion away, they put a lot of time and effort into figuring out what it would be like to actually implement that. So it's almost like another level of immersion in the experience. So for me, it's always very, I get very excited, very happy when I see that. What about you, Kat? I know it's been very busy over there.
Yeah, I think for me, it is absolutely exciting to be working with so many different people from all over the world. It's a real honor. And I think I take very seriously, though I do try to have a sense of humor as well, my support of them, because this, for some of them, not everyone, but for many of them, it's their livelihood and they take the art seriously. And I want to be able to help them with the best launch that they have that's possible for them. So but everyone has different goals. Everyone has different ways of looking at things. Some people are a team of one, you know, who are working at night after they get off of work, which I think is just incredible. And others are larger groups of people who are working together. And I just, the thoughts that come out of them, and they're often the ones who really propel my thinking forward just by talking to them every day, because they're in it constantly. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and I guess
no, go on. Go.
I just wanted to add, because I've had the pleasure to work with Adam as well for a while. It's been amazing to me to see how Adam has been able to come in and work with some of these partners that are launching these big titles and just challenge what it means to launch trailers, for example, in VR. Like historically, the whole industry was kind of doing a certain thing a certain way every time. But one of the things that Adam has spent a lot of time on is, figuring out and thinking about, what can we do differently? How can we convey when you see a first person video that it is not your 2D console, that it is actually something else. And I know that Adam, you're very passionate about that. So I've loved watching him kind of work with the devs as well to figure that out and, continue to make steps and evolve the way that we approach that.
And Adam, do you get, I don't know if pushback's the right word, but you get folks struggling to sort of see your vision and come in and I mean, they're obviously working in a fairly young medium to begin with. And are they supporting what you're trying to do with them, or do you get resistance sometimes?
I definitely get resistance. I think that's kind of the name of the game. What I was saying earlier is like, I'm trying to figure out a way to portray the virtual reality experience in a video. And so naturally there comes some pushback with that, because the person who's making the virtual reality thing wants the video to also be the virtual reality thing. But again, a picture is not a video, and a video is not virtual reality. So I think, just to put it generically, yeah, that's just how it goes. But I feel like, coming from the background that I do, and I'm a people person too, like combined with that, I think those two things, I'm usually able to find a middle ground between what I think is really going to resonate with the video audience and what is really special about the game to the developer.
And it seems like that's a really unique challenge, like you're saying, because you're dealing all. It's sort of like you're selling. Sorry, in many ways, you're selling a 3D product in a 2D manner, and that's so smart of you to think about that they are different mediums, and how do you take advantage of a traditional medium to really show off the 3D medium, even though they're watching it in 2D.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to think about too, like interesting thought experiment, right? Like, so I'm a big believer in that, you know, painting led to photography, right? And then photography led to filmmaking, and filmmaking led to VR, you know? So there really is a through line. There's an invisible thread between all of that. You know, if you really look at like the way that we choose to light things in games, it's the same way that we choose to like lighting techniques in movies, in photography, in painting, then like narrative storytelling, or, you know, yeah, of course, like as the mediums get more and more complex, you add more and more layers to what's happening. And that's what makes it a different medium, right? But ultimately, like there's still a lot of things that, you know, like I said, the invisible thread that runs through them all.
Yeah, it sounds to me like they're very lucky to have you on their team, because you certainly have the big picture in your head. And I just want to say also, by the way, I love how you all are communicating together. I can see the joy that you all have in what you do, which is great because you're all doing something you love to do, but you're also really clearly like enjoy your colleagues and you enjoy working together. And it's just so evident, and it's such a delight to see. So I'm just throw that out there. So thank you for all being happy. I do have a question from Nika. She's on Facebook. She says, are there any plans in the future to upgrade the Oculus to include full body experience, like say playing a game that outside sounds can affect the gameplay? So to some degree, you're talking about that with the sound design, but can you expand any more on this?
So we don't have any. Oh,
go ahead,
go, Adam. I'll go after.
I think Deb will have a better answer to this, but just like from a tech side, I think questions like this are the reason why Oculus exists in the first place. And just knowing the community that we're around, I think this is like one of the reasons why we're so passionate, is because we're around people every day that are asking questions like that, not just the people who are actually building the headsets, but the people who are building the experiences for it.
Yeah, that is on point. I guess the other thing I'll add to that from Adam's side is we do have an incredible research team that is out there trying all of these amazing things. If you want to get, for the students online, if you want to get an idea of that, you can look up Michael Abrash and the talks that he's been doing at our Connect conferences, because I think it'll give you a really good idea about what we're thinking of. And a lot of those things are further in the future, but that's definitely something that we're thinking about. The other thing I'll add to that is, one of the things that's really important for us in the company is to make sure that we make VR as accessible as possible. And that means that, you know, we have to take our time to figure out, you know, how do we make something that's super, super easy for anybody to pick up? And, you know, in a world where we did do that, for example, you could imagine that we would want to ask ourselves all of those questions internally and make sure that, you know, what we come up with is makes us, you know, takes us closer to that goal of making something very approachable and accessible. So for any of you on the call who end up in VR and trying and making your own experiences, maybe, you know, that'll be something to look forward to in the future, is like these new technologies coming in and being a part of that. So maybe we'll get to see one of your submissions in the future.
Which would be amazing. I do want to say, for those of you watching on Facebook, there's a slight delay between the Zoom and the Facebook. So if you post a question, it might take a moment before we get it or you hear it, because it's kind of being fed to us. So we apologize for that delay. I want to switch gears just for a second, because this is really great that we have 3 women on this who are involved with the Oculus, who are in tech, who are in games. And I would love to hear a little bit, because our game production program actually had, I would say probably 40% of those grads were women. And our animation program is probably around the same number, 40 to 50% of women. So I'm just wondering how the process of coming in and being so tech driven, you know, worked in your careers. And were there times where you had to sort of step around the big boys and prove that, or let me say the big boys, and prove that, you know, they should be taking you all seriously?
Who starts? Kat, you want to start, or Susan?
I can start. I think
Okay.
everybody are touching the sensible fiber now. But definitely, I think that being a woman in tech is first and foremost a remarkable honor. And I think it's an experience that we share all together, you know, all the Oculus women team, all the groups and all the experiences that we build together. It's an honor to be part of it. And it's an honor to not just make opportunities for ourselves, but build, you know, the elevator back for other people to continue growing and to continue pursuing this path. That's the first one. I think that the other part is, you know, for me personally, being a woman in tech back in the really back day, I remember, you know, I was the only student, you know, in a programming session or in a programming class, and you know, people used to call the women the Trojan virus of it. You know, this is back in the day. I'm from Costa Rica, so having a woman in a Costa Rican class, in a software engineering class, it was like, what the hell are you doing here? So I think that's something that for me, it helped me not just, you know, to build personality, but it was also helped me to pursue myself and to, you know, overcome these challenges and actually found my passion about it, you know, and get my goal very there. And even though there is some challenges, there is some, you know, things that you need to overcome, the fact that you were able to just go one step further, I think that's something super important. And just having in mind that for every bad experience, there are a ton of really good ones, and there are a ton of really amazing ones that are coming to your life. So again, for the people that are hearing, that are calling the like the Trojan of your classes, don't worry, you know, things are gonna be a bit difficult, but at the end, it's going to be super amazing, and you're gonna enjoy some of those experiences that are gonna shape you so much that it's gonna drive you to pursue way more things. Kat, up to you.
Let's see. I ran restaurants for a very long time, so I came up against a lot of chefs who really were big boys, and so that taught me resilience and just like one step at a time. So by the time I got into tech, it wasn't really such an issue for me. I also feel that Facebook hires a great deal of women. Like on the content team, I work with many women, 2 of which are on this call, and a lot of which are not on the call. And they have influenced me and helped me to become really comfortable with who I am. I don't tend to enter a room and think about gender very much. But I do think about composure and really making sure that I channel what I know and don't back down from that and from who I am. Deb.
Yeah. So that's amazing, Susan and Kat. I think for me, it's really interesting because I grew up in Puerto Rico. We don't really have a whole like ton of the gaming scene there, so I didn't really think that was something I could go for. I almost studied computer science, but I didn't know a woman engineer. I didn't have one in my life that I could take a look at, which I thought, like in retrospective, I was like, oh, maybe I would have done that. But I knew that I wanted to leave myself open to opportunities. And my way of describing myself is a lifelong learner. I don't feel like I'll ever be finished or done. And I think that's important for you in your careers, to leave yourself open to experiences. One of my favorite quotes that I ever heard was that luck is more than anything. It's a combination of getting an opportunity and acting on it. So I would say, you know, there's been a lot of decisions that I've made where I'll be scared or I'll be worried. And maybe it's a little bit out of my comfort zone, but I really sit down and think about it and just try to grow from that and move forward. And I just want to plus one what Kat said. I think within Facebook and their culture, they're always looking to find ways to continue to provide opportunities for everyone in the room to offer their perspective and their point of view. And to Kat's point, like I never even think about gender either when I walk in a room. And that's something that, you know, no one is perfect at, but Facebook goes out of their way to continue to even bring that education and that awareness into every single member of the team over time as well, which I think has also made a difference.
That's great. Yeah, I see that on a daily basis at the film school ourselves. There are a lot of women in leadership positions, and you know, we're at that point. I'm certainly at the school, and I hope in society in general, where it's just not an issue as it shouldn't be. But particularly for women in tech and moving into the STEM arena, it's really, really great to see. It's been a long time coming. Adam, curious for you in terms of coming to Oculus from a film background, first music and then film, coming into the Oculus and the game world. What prompted you to pursue that?
I've kind of been all over the place, but I spent 2 years at PlayStation as a video editor, where I was like helping produce a lot of content, trailers, and at the time, I mean, even still now, but more so at the time, PlayStation was also doing a lot of things with like streaming services, where we were making behind the scenes videos for some of their shows, and we were doing like some live action shoots for holiday, in Latin America, or, just like different random things like that, where I feel like PlayStation was an interesting place for me to take everything that I had already learned and kind of put it into practice in a professional environment. I was freelance before that. So, I was on like professional film sets, and I, was a part of a big freelance network where we were shooting commercials and corporate and like all that kind of stuff. So I had a lot of live action directing and producing experience, but taking that to the next level at PlayStation, where I was learning from people who, had been in the industry for 30 years or whatever, and, just kind of learning how to step it up a notch. Then, when the opportunity came up at Oculus, I kind of felt like, this is another great opportunity to take it up another notch and really, I came in by myself. I didn't come into a team. I came in with like, here is we're looking for somebody like you, tell us what your job is. And, so I was like, okay, like I feel prepared for this, because I have all these different backgrounds that I feel like, little did I know, my drumline experience, my choreography and music writing experience played into this. My live action, working on set, played into this, and my editorial experience and being a game nerd, it all played into it. So it was just an opportunity that came up that I felt like I couldn't turn down. And I'm 2 years in, and, again, to like echo everything that everybody, all the other panelists said, like, I feel like this is the most inclusive and open work environment that I've ever worked in. And what you were saying earlier, where like you can see how happy we are working here. Like you feel that as soon as you start, and having meetings with everybody here, and it really just is like everybody is a lifelong learner, and they really emphasize that is what makes a successful not just work culture, but like social cultures, and everything is like just understanding that like you are one perspective, and here are within the world 7 billion or 8 billion other perspectives, and so you're lucky to be a part of this ecosystem where you can contribute and also learn. So yeah,
That's
Deb
great.
and I work on a very diverse team, so we're very fortunate in that regard.
And I hear from all of you, I hear rich backgrounds and a willingness to move on to the next thing and explore and kind of look at the career as an adventure that must be conquered. And I love that attitude. And you can see it in you, and it really shows. So I really applaud that. We're waiting for another question to kind of get in, but I have a question for each of you. In your perfect fantasy world, what's the Oculus game you want to play?
Well, I'll go first. I got into VR because I have a sister with special needs, and I went on a big hike up in the Sierras looking for Yosemite toads. I've told this story before, but it still holds true today. And I went to this upper alpine area, which took days to get to. And I just thought it was the most incredible place ever. And I knew that my sister Gretchen would never really be able to hike there with me. So I really wanted to create an experience that could take her there and that she could see the flowers and the water and the creatures in the water and the peaks and kind of experience it on her own, not just as a 360 photo, but actually interact the way that I did and have not a replacement experience, but an experience of her own. And so that's what I would create.
Wow. Yeah, top that, everybody. That's amazing. What a wonderful story. Jeez, what a great, I mean, again, it's your passion, it's your personal passion is driving. And I think that's just amazing. Susan?
Ooh, I think mine is a bit similar to Kat, just because of the fact that I was super, super sick, like around 11 years ago. I had some issue on my spinal cord, and I was pretty much, I don't know this word in English, maybe that can help me, but it's like quadriplegico, when you are like when you cannot move your hands and
Yeah, I think that's a
legs.
quadriplegic. Yeah.
Quadriplegic.
Oh,
Sorry
wow.
for the translation. But yeah, there was a big issue, and I remember my therapies were given to me by these lady that was blind, and she was helping me gain the movement on my fingers. And I believe that, you know, on a sense, I would love for having some more opportunities to help people recover mobility in such, you know, in such small way that can help you either move your hands, move your legs, you know, help you gain all these, you know, confidence, mobility, and get you back on track on your real world. Like, luckily for me, I was able to recover it. I can run, I can dance, you know, I can be normal right now. However, there was like a very big time that I was struggling a lot. And I think that we have a tremendous opportunity with VR to create some tools that help people to gain, you know, all these health, mobility, and health issues. And we also see that right now with Beat Saber. We have tons of, you know, stories that came to us with, you know, all these experiences with arthritis and with all these, you know, like very, very big diseases on people that just because of getting back into the mobility, they were able to get better on their health. So Kat, I second you, and I talk by experience that I would love to have that back in the day.
Oh, cool. And Deb?
I feel like mine is kind of multi-tiered. So I just watched Ready Player One again last night, actually. And you did as well, Kat. And I'm just Ready Player One was like this kind of almost like required reading, like unofficially, when you joined Oculus, like back in 2014. And I think it really was about sort of imagining a world that could exist where so many things were possible. So I would say that's one thing that I'm very excited about. How do we explore that? And another, so it's like I have like multiple answers. Another one would be when I first found out about Oculus, it was years before I joined the company. I was actually playing an MMO, a massively multiplayer online game, which I think factors a little bit into this concept of the Oasis. So just being able to create these communities, and then also being able to, you know, with Beat Saber, experience music in a brand new way that is very involved, that a lot of people describe as, I feel like a superhero. If you film them, they're not necessarily look like a superhero, but they feel like a superhero. And that's the most important thing. And then finally, I'll say I'm the type who, like, one of my favorite things, and one of the reasons why I play video games is for the stories. Like, I'll go play, you know, I did Oxenfree like a couple of weeks ago, you know, some good old things like Firewatch. I'm the type to love getting into these stories because I love movies so much. I just love narrative. And I will sit there and cry over the final cutscene because I get so involved with these characters. So part of me is super excited about being able to someday bring like a fully narrative experience. I think Lone Echo was an amazing feat of that. And I'm excited to see more. So I couldn't pick one, Kevin. I ended up with a couple. But, yeah.
Again, it's passion. It's just so palpable. Adam, you are up.
Yeah, I think mine is going to be very similar to a lot of these, but mainly Deb's, where, you know, I would love to see like something equivalent to like the HBO show Westworld, where, you know, it's one thing to be in like an MMO where, okay, you're with all these players, and then it's a whole other thing to be in an open world with like an AI that, you know, you can interact with and create. You know, it reminds me of like where Grand Theft Auto is right now, or Red Dead Redemption 2, or, you know, there's a whole laundry list of games that are like this, where it's like, you know, the online component to it, you are interacting with other live players, but even just the world of the AI that you're interacting with, you know, the possibilities that could come about, you know, and we're headed there. So I don't think it'll be too long, but yeah, Ready Player One, it's coming.
Yeah, that's cool. A bunch of us from the school went over and did a VR game, you know, where we all worked together, but in separate rooms with the headsets on and everything, and played the game. And it was a blast. And you're talking about taking that to an even more exciting level, where there's more interaction going on, and it's just it's something so great and so exciting to think about. So we're asking this question, and we're going to ask it because we're not sure exactly. Is there a story? No. Oh, Adam, this is one I didn't see. Is there a story about the artwork behind you? Very cool. I assume that's Clint Eastwood behind you?
Yeah, so Clint Eastwood in The Mandalorian, and then I have a whole case of statues. So, and then there's actually Kendrick Lamar up there that is kind of out of frame, but Clint Eastwood and well, actually all three paintings. My cousin is a watercolor painter. So I've commissioned her over the years. You know, each one of these was probably 3 years apart or something like that. And I've just been collecting over time. And then all the statues that I have, they were either like gifts from PlayStation, like I have a God of War and Spider-Man. Like I did a lot of marketing material for those games. And my brother and I would go to BlizzCon every year for like 5 years. And so I have a lot of Blizzard, you know, memorabilia up there. And then some of my favorite film books and philosophy and nonfiction.
Who's your favorite film director?
That's a tough one, because I have a lot of favorites for different reasons. You know, I'm a pacing and a time guy, so I really love all of Christopher Nolan's movies. I really think he pushes the boundaries of what it means to create a movie, and also, you know, make an engaging movie. But I also really love Ava DuVernay. She looks like me, you know, like that's something that I think is really important right now. And just the things that she's doing in Hollywood, I have so much admiration and respect for.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So this question, this question from Facebook was asked by a guy who said he just got the headset Quest 2 and it's amazing. And he asked, are there any plans on developing a VR CAD program? So I don't know if is that like an AutoCAD program and being more immersive in building models for specific purposes? Wow.
Oh, I think that's what he meant. Okay, got it. I thought this could go a couple different ways.
Yeah.
I think we do have some applications. I'm curious, Adam, if you have any thoughts there. I think we have had some folks who have experimented with making applications that allow for, you know, architecture design to happen within VR in a unique way that allows for you to really immerse yourself in what you're building in a way that you can do it on a 2D screen to an extent, but instead of your mouse kind of hovering left and right, you're actually grabbing your controllers and you're moving the world around you by holding and grabbing. And some of these, so I think there's been a couple of things that might be either out or are coming that are touching on that a little bit. So I would say, yes, definitely stay tuned. That's also something that, you know, I want to say on the content side, we're also thinking about as well, or we try to support as well.
Yeah, just to quickly add on to that. Yeah, so what I know of, like in VR, there's Medium, which was bought out by Adobe maybe 2 years ago. That's not, I don't know if like that would be considered equivalent to like an AutoCAD, but that's one. There's also, you know, different programs inside of virtual reality. Like I think one is called Quill. Another one is called Gravity Sketch. And there's another one, a really big one that I'm blanking on right now. But yeah, like Deb said, it's being experimented on.
Cool. All right, I'm going to wrap this up with just one quick question. Is it okay if the viewers watching connect with you on LinkedIn and make you part of their network? Are you all on LinkedIn? Is that okay?
Yeah, no problem.
Sure.
Great, great.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you. And then just wondering, do you have any words of advice for people, for our students or our recent grads just launching their careers? I've heard a lot of great advice from here, and particularly following your passion. I think that's the huge, huge takeaway. But also just wondering, do you have any specific kind of advice that you would give for someone who's looking to launch a career in some way in the game industry?
I would say leaving yourself open to opportunities and trying to, once you identify your strengths, like try to hone those and build on them as much as you can. And, I think there's a lot of experience that's good experience, especially if it gives you new perspectives. I think, Adam talked earlier about being in the drum line. I think it was Adam, and how that kind of, was a huge, made an impact later in his life. So I would say for me, being an accountant has kind of helped me also help beat Saber right now and beat games. So I would say definitely leave yourself open for all of those opportunities. And, if it's scary and a little uncomfortable, don't turn it down. Just that might actually be good for you. Because a couple of the times that I told myself I never want to be thrown in a box. I will never be, there's people who love this, but I don't want to be doing the same thing my whole life. So I think it depends on what you're looking for. And there were times when it was really scary to make the change, but I felt like I had the drive and the passion. Those are two of my favorite words to live by. I think if you have those two things, they'll get you a long way, even when the going gets tough. So definitely don't shy away from it. And if you get an opportunity, when it came for me with Oculus, I believed in what we were doing so much. I still do, that I was ready to work in anything in the company just to be a part of that. So I would say on the film side, curious what you think, Kevin, as well, and Kat and everyone else, but I've seen these things happen where you'll start in one way, you'll get experience, and then doors open up for you in other places.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll just piggyback on that, I think the most important thing for me that I've learned is to just never give up. The transitions are challenging, and you might find yourself sometimes in places where you're like, how did I end up here? I don't really want to be here. Continue to push on, like what we've talked about, like one foot after another. It might be really painful for a little while. You might not love it for a while, but don't give up. Don't stay where you don't feel like you want to be. Just keep moving forward and you'll get to another place. Sometimes I look back on the past 5 or 10 years and I can't believe everything that I went through during that time and how I ended up here doing something that I love. But it took a lot of perseverance and a mindset of just continuing to learn and forging ahead. So don't give up. You will end up where you want to be.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
I want to say travel the world, get out of your house, get out of your comfort zone. I know living with mom and dad is something, like sometimes very nice and easy, but there's a whole universe out there waiting for you. And the more that you move, the more that you relocate, the more that you learn the world, that you the more that you challenge yourself with different cultures, with different experiences, backgrounds, the more that you learn how to appreciate who you are, how to appreciate what your strengths are, how to appreciate what you're bringing into the table, and pretty much how to go back to your essence and say, all right, this is me, this is what I can bring, this is, what you see is what you get, and this is, me. And you get back to be your authentic self and start trusting on your skills, trusting on your abilities. I learned from a very, very nice director at Facebook that from all the people that apply into the job that you currently have today, you have a set of skills, challenges, experiences, backgrounds that make you unique for what you're doing or for who you are. And I think that's what we need to make sure that we learn, that we are unique here, that we have a set of skills that are special for us and that we have to trust. And we sometimes, if we don't shape that, and if we don't shake them, just for a bit, because relocation might not be for everyone, moving from Costa Rica to Prague might not be for everyone. I understand that. However, I think that the more that you challenge yourself for doing that, the more that you build yourself stronger and ready for anything that can happen. So when the challenges arrive, you're ready to fight, you're ready to get up, you're ready to say, all right, bummer, what's next? and then you can keep going.
Wow, fantastic, fantastic. Adam, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm just going to be, adding on to, everything that everybody said. But, from this, everything that we've talked about and everything that was just said by them, what it makes me think about is like the word right now that's kind of a buzzword is like diversity, right? So like, in a buzzword sense, it means that, we live in a diverse world where there's, like we were saying earlier, there's a bunch of different perspectives and experiences. And so you have to, tailor your approach to that world because that's the world that you live in. But even further than that, like what was said here and what, I was talking about earlier too, diversity of experience, right? It's like, I come from a multi-experience background. I didn't just go to film school and end up here. I didn't just, like go into music and end up here or play video games and end up here. It was like the combination of all those things that led me to this. Like what Deb was saying earlier, I feel like, that really rings true for me is that creativity is not the medium that you sit in. Creativity is the thing that you use in the medium that you choose to be in, right? So I feel like that's really important to take away. But biggest thing is that, it's the social dynamics. It's the people that you're around. It's how you treat people. It's, the groups that you choose to be a part of. It's the culture that you help create or not create or help tear down or help build up or, like that has nothing to do with what we're in, but that is probably one of the most important things in relation to keeping it diverse.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, go.
There was one thing I wanted to say. This was advice that I got in like high school, but I kind of carried my whole life was being able to say that you don't know something and admit to it. That's something that has opened so many doors for me in life. I can't even say right now how much in like a career, that's been like, I'm aging myself now, like 15 years working pretty much so far. But it really has helped me a lot with getting mentors and support in all of the different roles that I've been in. Because I think it's also very, it takes a lot to be able to say that. But in my experience, it's always been such a positive because it really strengthens relationships that you have at work with your colleagues. And it also helps whatever you're all working towards be more successful at the end. And then you come out of it on the other side with more knowledge. So for me, that was a big win-win. So I just wanted to mention that. And Kevin, I know you didn't ask me, but I just wanted to do a little shout out to Guillermo del Toro and Hayao Miyazaki, who are two of my favorite directors. Talked about Spielberg a bunch, so I won't say them again. But yeah.
Ready Player One. That's great. Well, I just got to thank you all so much because this is like, first off, one of the best TED Talks I've ever attended. I mean, it's so wonderful. You all have such great points of view and you have great spirit, and it's great to see people happy doing what they're doing. And the journey might not have been easy to get there, but it's so great for our audience to see that and understand that your personal passion can pay off in unexpected ways, and to persevere and to keep going and to think about a bigger world out there. The world is bigger than just you, and embrace that. So I thank you all so much for your time and for your insights and for talking about games as well, but for everything else. It's really been a delight, and I know everyone appreciates it. And everyone on Facebook and YouTube are thanking you very much as well.
Thank
Well,
you.
big thank you to all of them, and study a lot and go make some amazing movies that I'm sure we'll get to enjoy in the future.
See you down the road, everybody.
Thank you very
Absolutely.
much, Kevin. Have a
Thank
good
you.
one.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Bye.
Guys, thank you.
Bye. Thank you, Kevin, for everything.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you guys. Really appreciate it.